minute here for PowerPoint to do its thing. Okay, great. Hold on. Now let me share. Oh, I thought Teams closed. I was like, what's happening? Okay. Everybody, don't worry. I'm good at computers. You won't have to watch me struggle the whole time. Okay, here we go.
Okay, I can see this.
Super.
So, for the sake of the recording, welcome Jenny. Jenny Dale from UNCG University Libraries is presenting on digitized historical periodical databases. I will be monitoring the chat. And thank you, Jenny. I'm going to turn my camera off and mute.
All right. Thank you so much, Sam. And thanks, y'all, for joining me today. I'm really excited to talk about this particular topic. So, as Sam said, I'm Jenny Dale. I'm the head of research, outreach, and instruction. And I'm also the liaison to communication studies, English, and women's gender and sexuality studies. I would love to hear in the chat if you would be willing to share what department or program you're with and or your role at UNCG. And while you're doing that, I will copy and paste. Well, I will try to copy and paste. I am failing at copying and pasting this link here. So I'm going to do that. Give you all a second to share in the chat to give me a little bit of a sense of where people are coming from. I missed a letter here. Okay, there we go. We've got Christine, who's a librarian at UNCG. Awesome. And I did just put the link. Hopefully it'll work. And hopefully we will hear from a couple other people in the chat, but I will just roll on ahead because I have so much I want to say about this topic and a limited amount of time to do it. So, okay, we're going to start with the basics. Excellent. Got a resources librarian at UNCG. I've got someone from math and stats and a grad student in MSITM, library science program and grad assistant in the library. So many exciting folks with us today. And I know for the sake of the recording, I know several people in my liaison areas were interested in this, but were teaching or in class at the time I'm presenting. So hopefully y'all are watching this later and enjoying yourselves. All right, so periodical is actually not a term we use all that much anymore. It's in the Oxford English Dictionary, which if you're not familiar, it's a great tool to use in conjunction with the tools I'm going to be talking to you about today, because it helps us understand the history of the English language. But there's even a note, and I didn't paste it in here because I was running out of space. There's even a note that it's mostly used in library science. So it's not necessarily something that we commonly use in our like everyday kind of talk. But if we are talking about periodical in an adjective form, the Oxford English Dictionary, starting in 1585, so this is a word that's been around a long time as an adjective. It just means it recurs at regular intervals. But we often talk about it in a noun form, and it has been, again, recorded since 1798, so still a pretty long time ago, as a magazine or journal issued at regular or stated intervals. And typically that's like weekly or monthly or quarterly. We can also think about newspapers, which are often daily, as periodicals because they are printed or issued at a regular interval. And yes, we got one more introduction in the chat. Hello to my wonderful colleague, who is the accessioning archivist and preservation specialist. I love that. That makes me want to say something. I have a colleague here from our special collections and university archives. We also have historical periodicals that are not digitized that you can actually go and explore with your hands in our special collections and university archives, as well as some things that we might consider periodical publications, like the Carolinian, like the UNCG student newspaper, which we do have digitized, and there are some options available online for that. So we also definitely have stuff physically in the library, but what I'm going to be focusing on today is really broader scope. And I want to give you a few notes. We are really just barely scratching the surface today. These are resources that I love. And so I have been really happy to have the opportunity to teach these in different classes or work with students and faculty and other folks who might be doing research related to this particular type of source, historical periodicals. I'm going to share a resource with links that have more sources than the ones I'll have time to show today. And that's going to include things that are provided by UNCG libraries through subscriptions, as well as things that are available as sort of open access. Um, and it's still a work in progress, by which I mean I was still updating it about 8 minutes ago, right before I came into this. So there will be more stuff added to that, but hopefully that'll give you, if this is something that you find interesting as we're going through, you will have opportunities to explore some of these. And I do want to just let you know that everything I'm showing you today is going to be English language, and really most of our historical periodical holdings are in English. English is the only language that I can speak and read fluently. So I haven't really explored much beyond that myself, although there are resources out there that can connect you to sources in other languages too. And you're always welcome to contact me about that. Okay, so the three questions, I'm sorry, I'm really bothered by this weird. Okay, there it went away. Three questions for getting started. This is what I would encourage any researcher who's thinking about using historical periodicals to start with, is to do a little sort of pre-thinking and then some research. So what, when, and where? And I'm going to go more into detail here. So in terms of the what, you can think about this in a few different ways. To me, the two most important what questions are, what type of source do I want, as in sort of the format? Do I want an article? Do I want a review? Am I looking for an original piece of literature like a poem or a story? Advertisements, essays, recipes, all kinds of other things that we can find in some of these databases. And many of them, particularly the ones that include a lot of different source types, will let you do some limiting to specific formats. Then there's always the big question of about what? What am I actually trying to research here? Do I have a topic? Is there a person or place or event that I want to know about? Is there a concept or idea that I want to explore? And I'm going to try to show you some examples of different whats that you might be researching. When, of course, is really important, and specific dates are almost always going to be helpful, particularly if you're looking at newspapers because of their daily publication, or that they tend to be daily. Any date ranges are going to help with periodicals, but the more sort of precise and limited you can be, the better in terms of your experience of finding resources. So if you really want to know about a topic that is really early 19th century, something like a limit of 1800 to 1820 would be more effective in terms of being able to find more precise results than like the whole century, for example. Especially if you're looking for something specific, a person, an event, a place during a given time. And I also heavily encourage you, highly encourage you, heavily sounds weird, highly encourage you to do some research ahead of time to help you determine appropriate dates and ranges. And I see I have a typo on there, so I'll fix that too. And then the where. Where in the world is a good question first. And I'm going to be using terms today like the US and UK or America and Great Britain that are ideas that have changed over time in terms of what they mean. I'm just using them as kind of shortcuts. But are we looking for things that are in what we now consider to be the United States? Are we looking for things that are what we would now consider the UK? Places that were once part of the British Empire, which, was pretty vast for quite some time. And then where in publication. So thinking about, okay, what am I actually looking for? Do I want to know about the news of the day? Do I want to get some slice of life stuff? What were people learning about and hearing about? Do I want to get a sense of public opinion? Do I want to find an obituary or some sort of more biographical piece? Often newspapers are going to be great sources for that. If I want to know more about if I want to get social commentary, if I want to learn about what kind of scientific things were going on that people were talking about, if I want to get literary reviews or sort of literary criticism, often magazines and journals are going to be better for that because they tend to have long form writing, what we would think of now as more like long form journalism. And also, if you're looking for things that are like original literary works, like some of the, the novels of George Eliot, for example. I use her as an example because I studied George Eliot, and I like a lot of her works. Many of them were published periodically or serially in a periodical publication, and that was really common during that time frame. But we often need to do, sorry, there's small text on here. We often do need to do some background research to make sure not only do we know where and when we might need to be looking, but also being as precise as we can with search terms. So getting precise with that what question. Research terminology, you can research terminology that would have been in use during the time of your research. The way we understand language and the way we use language changes over time, meanings and definitions for things change. An example I often use when I'm talking to students is if you're reading Romeo and Juliet and we're talking about the nurse in Romeo and Juliet, the way we would have understood the concept of a nurse at that time is really different than the way we would sort of automatically understand the concept of a nurse now. So we are talking about how words kind of naturally change over time. And of course, some historical terminology that will have been used regularly will be, offensive and outdated by our current standards. And that's something that we have to kind of figure out as we're going through this research and determining what terminology might have been used. It's also really helpful to use good search syntax. So when I'm doing some searching today, you'll be seeing me use quotation marks around sort of multi-word phrases, including names or titles. So again, I've got a George Eliot example here, Mill on the Floss as a George Eliot novel. If I want to find reviews for that, it's going to help me to put all of that within quotation marks. I also want to be using my search connectors like and or. So if I know that there was sort of an event in particular that went by a few names. So the Great Exhibition was also sometimes called the Crystal Palace Exhibition, among other names in the 19th century London. And so I might need to use or to say, I'll take either one of these because I'm not exactly sure which name would have been used most commonly. But then if I'm looking for information about Crystal Palace Football Club, which is a Premier League soccer team now or football team, I would be able to use something like and to say, all right, I'm looking for Crystal Palace and I need to make sure I'm connecting it to football club to make sure that I'm getting as precise as I can. So precision is really helpful here. And I am always happy to talk to folks if you are trying to do research in these kinds of periodicals, in these newspapers or magazines. I'm always happy to help. I'm also work closely with our history liaison, Joshua Olson, who likes to use these as well. And I think we're going to be collaborating some on the resource that I mentioned earlier. So that's a whole lot of like context to get us ready to go in and actually search. So that's what we're going to be doing next. I'm going to be demonstrating for you. So I am going to, let's try pasting this in. Okay. This is the guide that I mentioned that I am working on, the resource I mentioned, and it is under construction, but I have put some of my personal favorites here on the main page, and that's what I'm going to be going into today. And I have gotten a start of putting together some additional resources. And the only reason I distinguish my favorites is because these are the ones that I use a lot. So I'm actually going to go in and show you an option for searching British and American periodicals from the 18th, 19th, and even into the 20th centuries together. So I am going to go into this link here, American Periodical Series. This is a ProQuest resource. This is really one of my absolute favorites. No, I don't want that. And I'm getting rid of this. But I want to show you here, this is again kind of an advanced search technique, but I am going to click on American periodicals here, click change databases, because I just want to show you that I can search American periodicals and these review UK counterpart British periodicals at the same time. And I find this helpful if I'm like, well, I want to know what this topic was, how this topic was being looked at across the pond. And then there are other periodicals databases as well as newspapers specifically in here, but I'm going to try to keep it a little more simple for us today because we only have 13-ish minutes left. So I'm going to click Use Selected Databases. So now I'm using both American periodicals and British periodicals, 2 in 1. And then I'm going to go ahead and go into advanced search because I find that that makes things a little bit easier for me. This is how I think about my searching, but using that basic search page is completely fine as well. And I'm actually going to use some of my examples that I just gave you. I'm going to do something that I think is a little bit more fun. So one of my favorite things to do in terms of my leisure reading, one of my favorite things to read is historical romance. And when I demonstrated this database combination to my colleagues within my department, several other dedicated romance readers liked this example. So I'm going to use it. So if you have ever read historical romance, if you've watched Bridgerton, if you've, seen really anything, if you've read Jane Austen, whatever, you might have heard of this a concept of the idea that reformed rakes make the best husbands. This is like a trope throughout that. And we were delighted to find, and I haven't done this search since, so hopefully it'll still work. We were delighted to find that reformed rakes, again, I'm using the quotation marks, um, and reformed rakes, and I'm actually going to leave it here. I'm not even going to change it into source types. I'm not going to change dates yet because I want to show you what we find. So I'm looking for reformed rakes, which is going to look specifically for that term. Those two words in that order right next to each other. And you can see, all right, with the sort of like light blue highlighting, if you're able to see that, it is showing me that that is where um, anytime reformed rakes shows up together. So you can see that this actually was legitimately something that people were talking about, particularly sort of during the 19th century. But here's an old school. This is from July 1779. So I'm going to go into this one, the laudable stratagem, and see here. So I want to just take a moment here and acknowledge how incredible it is that I'm seeing this on my computer screen. This was published, like I said, in 1779. That was such a long time ago. And here we are looking at it now. And the scans aren't always 100% perfect, but like this is really good. I can read basically everything on this page. And because these do, as far as I know, all of them have optical character recognition in their scanning. It means that's why this full text search works. And this is, again, part of what makes it really amazing to search these, the fact that it's finding reformed rakes when it shows up in the text of the article. And that's one of the reasons I recommend precision, because when you're doing a full text search, if you've ever used something like JSTOR, for example, usually you get a ton of results back because it's searching the title, it's searching the description, but it's also searching the full text when available. So here we go. It is an opinion too much cherished by the fair sex that your reformed rakes make the best husbands. That rakes, when they are actually reformed by the women whom they marry, may behave afterwards in an exemplary manner. So we can see kind of where our where our term showed up here. I can read this whole thing here. I can flip through the PDF page by page. I can download this. I can get a PDF here. I can copy the URL so I can get back to it. And then I can go to this abstract details. This is where I often try to figure out a little bit more information about the publication itself. So this is from a publication called the Town and Country Magazine, or Universal Repository of Knowledge, Instruction, and Entertainment. That's a pretty highfalutin title there. I can see who published it, where it was published, how often it came out, all of this good stuff. And then, like I mentioned, there's also a URL. It's the same one that I can copy up here, but I could also copy and paste it from here. And it also is telling me, especially since I used two different databases at the same time, it's telling me specifically which one it came from. To me, again, this is like just absolutely incredible that we have access to things like this right here on our computer screen. And I can click on the publication title. These are clickable links. And I can actually look through particular issues if I want to get a sense in context, like where did this particular article show up? What else was covered in the same issue? That kind of thing. So again, to me, this is incredible. Yes, Sam, apparently this has been true. We're talking 18th century here. So I love this. And that's just one example that I wanted to share with you. Another example that I want to use that I've also used within teaching, let me just go ahead and go back to my results. I was working with a class that was looking very specifically at a particular time frame. So I'm going to modify my search here. I should still be searching both of those databases, but this person was trying to research rabies during a specific date range during it was 1790 to 1810. And that was part of the assignment for this class. And so I got actually maybe, you know what, I think it was even more limited than that. I think it was actually 1790 to 1800. And so I got 3 results. And I thought that was kind of wild because I'm sure there was rabies around in the 1790s. And fortunately, my colleague Joshua Olson, who I've already mentioned as our history liaison, was there with me that day when I was teaching. And he did a little research, and this is where that precision and that's why does this say reformed rakes? Rabies is what I was looking for. Okay, so I get more that way. But what he found was that actually the term hydrophobia was more commonly used during this time as opposed to rabies. So if I change this to let's see if I can spell it right, hydrophobia. I get a lot more results in that same time frame because this was the more commonly used terminology. And that he was able to get, honestly, I think, with like a Wikipedia search. But this is also a time where that Oxford English Dictionary resource, which we also provide access to, could be super duper helpful. You could search rabies and then see, okay, was there another term that was used? Because it will help you kind of connect to previously used terminology that would mean the same kind of thing. Now, once again, I'm just going to go in and show you. Let's take a look at this one. This is a different publication. I just wanted to give you a sense here of what it actually looks like when we go in. And this has happened to be, British publications, partly because of the time that I'm limiting it to. Actually, this is from New York. That's cool. So when we get into the 19th century, we have a lot more variety of what we would think of as American publications because America had been around a little bit longer and we had more sort of publishing houses and publishing companies. So I can find all kinds of stuff here. I'm going to give you another sort of pop culture example. So I'm actually, though, going to go all the way back to my research guide. For me, because I'm not actively researching, like doing, academic research about a historical period, I use a lot of these resources to like explore things that I think are interesting to me that I come across, like reformed rakes. Um, I'm going to go into the British Library newspapers next, which is another one of my favorites here. I'm going to open a new tab so that it's easier for me to get back here because you saw how I struggled with all those back buttons. And I am going to, okay, so there's a Netflix show that I have really enjoyed. That's an Italian show called The Law According to Lydia Poet. And I know from my extensive personal Googling that Lydia Poet was a real figure. She was the first female lawyer in Italy. And to me, yes, Suzanne loves it too. It's so good. It's really great acting, beautiful costuming. If you're like into stuff like the Gilded Age and things like that, and you love sort of the whole production value, Lydia Poet is really good. So I'm going to come in here and I haven't tried this, but I'm going to see if Lydia Poet is someone who would have been, oh, okay. I'm going to go into lady lawyers here because that sounds totally relevant. Again, I use that forced phrase search so that it is pulling Lydia poet together, and that's particularly important here because the word poet is going to come up in a lot of other contexts. But I can see this is from the Western Daily Press newspaper in Yeovil, England. I may be mispronouncing that. From 1883, and they are talking specifically about Signorina Lydia Poet, uh, the same person that I found interesting enough that I wanted to research. So this is how I do a lot of my topic selection is like, oh, what have I watched or read or seen recently? And then this is, again, this is newspapers. We have a ton of historical newspapers that we provide access to. One of my purposes in showing you these different things today is just to like show you the sort of vastness of what's available, and how frankly easy it is to search. Um, it is going to be harder when you have maybe a less, commonly known topic or a less well-known person. But because of the way that these like search processes actually work, the syntax of the search and all that good stuff, it does make it easier to find things when there are sources out there about those things. I'm going to just do one more example because I have a little bit more time. I'm going to go into New York Times. This is another one of my favorites. This is the historical New York Times that goes back to the founding of the paper in 1851. Um, so hopefully, oh, nope, it doesn't like that because it's behind the thing. Let me go here. So you'll see this is from the same company, the same ProQuest company. So different things that we used before will work well. But I am going to take a look here. I'm going to just do my Lydia Poet search again and see. Okay, we know that there was some mentions in, nope, I spelled it wrong. That's not helpful. Um, it does not want, oh, okay, it's saying it couldn't find that. It's trying to be smart. We'll find out how this works. To see if found Lydia Poet in 1999. This doesn't feel quite right. So sometimes you are going to come across things where you're like, no, that's not what I thought this was going to be about at all. So I'm not really getting anything with my search here. I did find some in the Lady Lawyers article here in Gale Primary Sources. This is the kind of thing where I would um, look further. I might go back to American or British periodicals to search for her to see if there was commentary on her, being sort of a famous figure as the first female lawyer in Italy. So that was a lot of stuff pretty fast. Again, this historical periodicals guide that I'm working on will be available. I mean, it already is available. It's just not completed yet because I would love to spend some time just like digging into this. And then I just want to say thank you so much for spending some time with me today and looking at fun old stuff that you can find online. Please feel free to email me anytime if you have questions about this. I'm going to put my email address in there. Thanks so much, y'all, for joining me. And I'm happy to take questions now if people have them. I know people might need to leave because it's the 30-minute mark, but I'm going to stop sharing so that I can actually see Teams better.
Yeah, I did put all the links to our upcoming ones, the assessment for this webinar in the chat. So I always schedule these for 45 minutes in case there's like some time for questions, but if people have to leave, we totally understand. So are there any questions for Jenny?
Something I didn't actually get to, but that I do use this for a lot work-wise, because I am the English liaison librarian, is looking for contemporary reviews of like novels or collections of poetry or essays that were coming out. So again, I didn't give you an example of those, but the functions all work the same way. So if I wanted to get a review, I mentioned The Mill and the Floss as an example of a novel from the 19th century that I read. If I want to find out, okay, well, what were people saying about it? Like when it actually came out? And that sometimes that can be very surprising, particularly when we look at things that might have been received very differently in the time of publication than they are now. So it's a really helpful resource for things like that.
Oh, just for my own sake, I might look up like how Jane Austen was reviewed. That's what my
Mm-hmm.
daughter came, my fifth grade, my fifth grader came home the other day and was like, "Have you heard of Pride and Prejudice?" And I was like, "Yes."
No, tell me more.
So
That's really
Christine
cute.
said, "I'll have to look up the Moonstone." Yes.
Yeah, there are like the sort of gothic novels, Christine. It's really fun to look at those because there are some people who are like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing I've ever read, ghosts and stuff. And then people are like, this is the work of dark forces, so it's kind of like, some things that we have had. I think about Twilight when Twilight was a thing, 15 years ago or so, and how it was divisive, kind of same.
It would be really crazy to see about Dracula. That wasn't my first thought, but that one would be really interesting.
Yes, and there are some things like that where they're kind of written in a way, the things that are written as like epistolary novels where people might be like, is this really letters? So did this happen? Was there a vampire? Those are pretty fun to look up. So I encourage you to have some fun with resources that you specifically help provide a lot of access to, Christine. So
Okay. Well, I'm going to take that pause in the chat and, you know, in here to say goodbye. Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, everyone, for
thank
coming.
you. Thanks,
And
everyone.
again, I'll send the follow up email soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Farewell.
Thank you. You have a good one.